G'day, my fellow media collectors. I'm Troy, and today we're looking at Mosaic is an animated superhero film that was produced by Power Entertainment, Film Roman and Manga Entertainment, and had its television premiere on the 10th of March 2007 on the Cartoon Network. This movie was released under the Stan Lee Presents banner, which is a series of direct-to-DVD animated films distributed by Power Entertainment with Anchor Bay Entertainment in association. The story concept was by Stan Lee, with the script written by former X-Men writer Scott Lobdell, and its project reflects Stan Lee's later career efforts to create new heroes outside of the Marvel brand for a new generation of fans. This DVD has a runtime of 72 minutes. This DVD version was released on the 9th of January 2007. And it was distributed by Genius Entertainment. The story follows an aspiring actress, Maggie Nelson, who gains extraordinary shape-shifting powers after a mysterious rune is struck by lightning in a storm, transforming her. She joins forces with Mosaic, a secretive shapeshifter, to stop the rogue Maniken from using mystical stones to gain godlike powers. Their quest takes them from New York to the North Pole, accumulating in a dramatic showdown where Mosaic sacrifices himself to stop Maniken. In the end, Maggie embraces her new role as Mosaic, vowing to protect their legacy while continuing her acting career. Now, the script for this film delivers a reasonably solid, if what shall we say, formulaic superhero origin story. Aims more at your younger audience members, and while it does its best to strike an even balance between action, exposition and character development, I am afraid it's not without its flaws. And look, while the concept, a teenage girl gaining shape-shifting powers from an ancient race, sounds like it could be a fresh superhero origin take, unfortunately the execution is pretty flat, rushed and painfully simplistic with it at its core. It's little more than just a paint-by-numbers superhero origin story that we have seen 1,000 times before. And it is very clear from the start that this is meant to be a very functional and kid-friendly superhero tale with a strong concept and empowering lead for young girls. But when it comes to the more, shall we say, mature audience members like myself, it falls short of anything exciting due to its flat dialogue and lack of emotional complexity. That's not saying that the dialogue is serviceable for a younger audience, it's just that it lacks any sort of real nuance or emotional resonance, with many of the lines feeling very, I could say, overly expository or cliched, making the characters, especially a villain, come off as very one-dimensional characters throughout this film. Still, for that younger audience, the speedy 72 minutes animated feature is really designed to entertain and inspire that younger crowd, and I think it accomplishes that well enough. But for us more, shall we say, mature comic book fans, this script comes off as a real shallow and uninspired attempt at superhero storytelling, with some very cardboard cutout characters and a forgettable villain that, despite any interesting premise and Stan Lee's name attached to the project, look, the script does nothing to stand out or even engage beyond the most basic level of storytelling. Look, for me, this is a very dull, paint-by-numbers script that squanders a promising idea with some very weak dialogue and just, I hate to say it, no real heart at all. And for me, I'm definitely going to give this a 10 out of 30 maybe. So this film is not an adaptation of any comic book out there, and Mosaic is an original superhero concept created by, yes, the man Stan Lee. specifically for television and DVD, and was part of a series of films under the Stan Lee Presents banner. Now, from what I could find out about this film, it was, how can I put it? It was some of the first pieces of content that POW Entertainment had released, which is a company that was formed by Stan Lee, Guild Champion, and Arthur Lieberman. Now, Mosaic, Lightspeed, and Condor were created by Stan Lee. And when I mean created, I would have to say that that term is used very loosely. As Stan kind of did, right? Okay, he kind of did, but it was more the writer, Scott Lobdell, that did all the heavy lifting. And if you're watching the special feature interview on this DVD, Stan, he pretty much says as much, that he just came up with the initial idea, a very basic concept, shall we say, and that the character was more Lobdell's character, really. He came along and fleshed it out into the character that she is. Very much like a, how can I put it, Bob Kane and Bill Finger situation, if you know that story. As far as the animation style goes, it's very much a product of its time and looks very average, with the animation looking a little stiff and the character designs coming off a bit flat, and the action scenes are, well, mediocre at best. And it looks like it was a budget production, and not in a charming way, shall we say. So nothing special there, but serviceable nonetheless.
I did the best I could with what I had.
Now, I'll just grab the cast from here. And as you can see, the cast list, well, the majority of the cast are seasoned voice actors, that is for sure, except for Anna Paquin, who is probably the best known on there for playing a rogue in the X-Men films, which I'm sure you remember. Now, this should be a quick one, as it really only has two main characters, and as such, even though they didn't exactly knock it out of the park, it seems like everyone just sort of came in for a paycheck, really. Honestly, that's the best I can say. So look, let's start with Anna Paquin as Maggie Nelson. Now, while Paquin is capable as a live action actress, her voice performance as Maggie was lacking most of the time, often delivering her lines in this very flat, bored tone that kind of drains any tension or excitement from the scenes. Her portrayal of a teenage girl discovering she has a superpowers should have been dynamic and layered, but instead comes across as very monotone and lifeless, kind of like she's reading off a cue card between takes. So we have Kirby Morrow as Mosaic. Now, Morrow was a seasoned voice actor, there's no two ways about it, known for roles in Dragon Ball Z, X-Men Evolution, and Gundam. But his performance is, well, average and serviceable at best. And the character here is never really fully realised, and spends most of the better part of the film coming across as more flat and emotionless, which then makes his character feel, well, dull and forgettable. His interactions with Paquin, well, have little chemistry to say the least, or weight at times, and it feels more robotic and underwhelming, pretty well much, like he was literally phoning that bad boy in. We also have Ron Holder as the villain of our story, Maniken, who is voiced with the usual, shall we say, evil sorcerer flair, but the performance comes across a bit overly theatric at times and cartoonish, lacking in any sort of subtlety or menace for the what should be a memorable villain. And as far as the rest of the supporting cast goes, well, they're competent. They are in the end mostly forgettable due to the weak material they had to work with, and the vast majority of the cast sounding generic and interchangeable at times, with no standout moments or memorable voice characterizations at best. They all kind of sound the same. Overall, the voice acting is serviceable for what would be, say, a Saturday morning style cartoon superhero movie, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression on me, or audience for that matter of fact. And for that, I think the best I can do is 5 out of 20. Okay, as we look at the disc and case, there's the front cover. Doesn't really give you much to go off, it's just the name. A lot of them are like that, which is a bit weird. So there we got the sides. And there is the back. The back's not too bad, like gives you a bit of a rundown. Got a picture of old Stan. Let's have a look at the disc, and there you have it. Nothing too special. We've got a bit of a insert there. But overall, they're all the same. They're all very basic. There's not a real lot going on there. Look, for that, it looks okay, and together they don't look too bad on your shelf. But yeah, there's not a lot of flash and flare in this one. So for that, look, the best I'm going to do for this is 5 out of 10. So there are a couple of special features on this DVD, and they include an introduction to the movie by Stan Lee himself, an interview with the creator, Stan Lee of course, and an interview with the director, Roy Smith. And now, look, there's not a real lot here at all, but when I say that the introduction from Stan Lee and the interview with Stan have some of the same material in them, so talk about really trying to fill this out by using the same stuff over again.
Again, I love repetition.
With that aside, you get Stan being the character that he is, Stan Lee, as he's so over the top and talking about how this character literally is going to be the next Spider-Man or Wonder Woman.
Excuse me? Baking powder?
Look, I know he likes to embellish, but let's be serious for a minute. There was no way this character was ever gonna be that.
Damn right.
And then we have the writer trying to sell the character to us, but for me, it didn't help get me excited for this at all, or for the character, or for the story. I think they were trying to convince themselves more than they were trying to convince us, the audience. So for me, yes, we got some special features, but they're definitely not special. So for that, I'm going to give it probably the bare minimum and go with a 2 out of 10. As I bring up the Rotten Tomato scorecard, as you can see, the critics, there's no score from the critics. Okay, we'll have a look at the audience score, and that came in at 49%. Well, okay. Now look, there was only 2 reviews from the critics. As you know the deal. That's not enough to put a score on the board. But they both gave it a good review, which I kind of actually found surprising. But anyway, if we look at the audience score, there was about 250 people there, and it was very 50-50 down the middle, with half of the people saying
That was the best thing I have ever seen.
with the other half going
Boring!
and pretty much saying the same as what I'm saying right now, that it's boring. Look, it's not terrible, it's just boring. This is very much a love it or you hate it kind of movie, which I guess for me, I'm more on that latter side. But I was surprised at how many people do like it. But like I say, if we all like the same thing, it would be a boring world. Anyway, so look, we've only got the 1 score to go off. So look, I'll just round that one up. And of course, what do we get? Yep, 5 out of 10. Now look, I've actually been very keen to watch these Stan Lee Presents movies for ages, which include Mosaic, Condor, and Lightspeed. And I have been so curious to see if the old boy Stan Lee still has it. And well, after watching this, my hopes have dwindled a lot, to say the least, because this is, if that's the standard for the next 2 movies, then God help me, as I found this movie to be so
Boring.
Now look, I cannot blame Stan for all this, I really can't, because I just kind of get this impression he was probably just rolled in and they said, hey Stan, give us a new superhero idea, and he was like, he gave him like this 2-line description of a character idea, and then the writer came in and made up, shall we say, the other 95% of the character. So I would say that the writer's probably more to blame than Stan on this occasion. Now, before anyone says anything like, this movie, it's awesome, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, look, I get it. This movie is not for me. It is definitely targeted at maybe a younger female audience that likes Spider-Man. And as they say, the movie you don't like might be someone's favourite movie. But for me, I was like,
No, sir, I don't like it.
now, was it terrible?
Not really. Really?
Was it hard to watch?
No, it was
It was fine.
But did I just find it boring and not interesting?
I bet you did.
Am I a grizzly old comic book geek?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, yeah, sometimes. But look, to me, there is nothing new here that I found interesting or very much... Look, it very much comes across to me like a Spider-Man for girls kind of thing. That's probably the best way I can describe it. Look, there is definitely an audience out there for it, and maybe you are one of those people and you think it's awesome and enjoy it, and I think that is great. But for me, this one's just going to be sitting in the collection collecting dust, as I don't think I'll be watching this one again anytime soon. Because let's face it, this really wasn't aimed at me. Anyway, for my score, for my opinion, I'm going to put this at a 5 out of 20. Okay, for availability, I'm actually going to put this at a 4 out of 5, as it's not that common to find, but you will have to do a little bit of searching on the secondhand market for it. Now, as far as collectability goes, I'm actually going to rate this as a 1 out of 5, as I really don't think you need it in your collection unless you're a massive Stan Lee fan. For the average price, you are looking at somewhere between the $9 to $32 mark for a DVD, so it does pay to shop around, as I always say. Let's go to the scorecard and see how this one shapes up. Now, for the final score, we get a grand total of 32 out of 100. Ugh, that's not a great score. Actually, that's probably a bit lower than I expected. But for me, this one is a boring, uncompelling, and it kind of looks like it's a bit of a cash grab at the expense of Stan Lee's name, but that's just my opinion.
Funny. I was just thinking the same thing.
Next week on the show, we are going to look at Stan Lee's Condor as we do our Stan Lee month of his independent movies. So make sure you come back and check that one out. Thanks for watching.